The training was based upon how to approach sexual violence at the national level through the national courts, but also taking into account sexual violence as it's characterized under international crimes, and particularly the policy of these international crimes as they relate to sexual violence, to assist not only within witness preparation, but within pleading before the courts, and with changing the legal culture so that we understand how and why sexual violence occurs during time periods of armed conflict or periods of crimes against humanity or genocide, and how our legal culture can work toward deterring such crimes, their very occurrence, prevention, and when they're not prevented, that they are pursued in justice. So what I took away today is that there are fabulous, fabulous teams of very dedicated attorneys in civil society in these countries who have caseloads and will have caseloads and advocacy issues to bring forward concerning sexual violence as an international crime as tried in national jurisdictions. Sexual violence is an attack on your sexual integrity. It could be physical, such as physical penetrations, different forms of rape against boys or girls or males, men who are older or women who are older, or it could be situations of forced sterilization. It could be a situation of sexual slavery, other forms of sexual violence. It could be violence that's mental violence, being terrorized by knowing that sexual violence is about to come to your village, or seeing your father sexually violated in front of you, being forced to rape a family member. Unfortunately, it's like picté, that would not delineate what are the different ways that one can torture, because the mind of the torturer is always ahead of the mind of a person who can't conceive of being a torturer. So I can't give you, unfortunately, a definite list of what is sexual violence. It's very interesting because the case in terms of forced circumcision came before the ICC within one of the Kenya cases, and it was pleaded as sexual violence, and the judges found it to be considered an other inhumane act and not under the category of sexual violence. I think in a layperson's sense, many of people I've talked to, when I would ask, well, if you were forced to be circumcised, would you consider that to be sexual violence? I haven't had one person to tell me, no, it's not. So I think it can be, but it also could be categorized possibly under other legal headings, such as other inhumane acts, or cruel treatment, or a form of torture, could be a form of mutilation. First of all, a thorough investigation, uncovering the facts, having a judicial process readily available, which means having laws in place, having judicial organs in place, courts, and making sure that in most instances those courts will need not only a good prosecution team, but a very good defense team, because it's only then that one has a rule of law and can think of due process. It might also need persons who are excellent analysts, persons who understand questions of witness protection. In many cases, it means having interpreters, both in the investigation and in the court setting, and prosecution and defense, who interpret the voice of a person who might not be speaking the language of a court, even a national court. We have nations that have many, many languages, and sometimes when sexual violence is ethnic oriented, it might not be the main language of the national court. But what we need in place, as much as that, or more than anything else, is an international community that is not concerned in the sense of being paternalistic, but that understands that if sexual violence is occurring, and it's risen to the level of an international crime. It's just completely unacceptable. Who is being attacked in many ways are collective groups, the civilian population, the different groups in terms of genocide, or the groups that are protected under war crimes, civilians or POWs or the wounded. But in essence, that's a different way of saying who is being attacked by sexual violence is the international community. So what we need in place is an international community that has drawn the line and said, no more, enough.